Hi students, this is Laura Antones. I am your virtual content specialist for multilingual learners, and today on Unit 8, Day 1, Introduction to Human Impact on Keystone Species and Ecosystems, we are going to check together some strategies to improve your reading comprehension for the Living Environment Regions examination. Let's begin. You have probably noticed that some of the questions that appear in the living environment regions require for you to read a complex text. Okay, so today we are going to practice those kind of questions, and you will see how putting some of these strategies that I'm going to show you today into practice is going to make a difference for you. Let's start. So base your answers to questions on the next 3 slides on the passage below and on your knowledge of biology. Okay, this is a question that appeared on the Living Environment test on August 2012. Let's start by reading the passage one time and trying to find the main idea of this passage.
Keystone species. A keystone species is one whose presence contributes to the diversity of life and whose extinction would lead to the extinction of other forms of life. A keystone species helps to support the ecosystem of which it is a part. An example of what can happen when a keystone species is removed occurred when fur hunters eliminated sea otters from some Pacific Ocean kelp beds. Otters eat sea urchins, which eat kelp. With its major predator gone, sea urchin populations exploded and consumed most of the kelp. Fish, snails, and other animals associated with the kelp beds disappeared. The grizzly bear is another example of a keystone species. Grizzlies transfer nutrients from the ocean ecosystem to the forest ecosystem. The first stage of this transfer is performed by salmon that swim up rivers, sometimes for hundreds of miles. Salmon are rich in nitrogen, sulfur, carbon, and phosphorus. The bears capture the salmon and carry them onto dry land, scattering nutrient-rich feces, wastes, and partially eaten salmon carcasses. It has been estimated that the bears leave up to half of the salmon they harvest on the forest floor.
Okay, so the first strategy is for you to use your prior knowledge and previewing the text. Just by looking at the word keystone species, your mind already activated its prior knowledge. What do you already know about keystone species? Which can be some examples. What do you already know that happens when you remove keystone species from the ecosystem? Think about all that as you read the text. Tip number 2. Annotate as you are reading the text. What is this paragraph talking about? Specify the main idea of each part of the reading. For example, at the beginning of the reading, I can see how the concept of keystone species is introduced. And then I see the text is giving me 2 examples of keystone species. The first example is the sea otters. And the second example of a keystone species is the grizzly bear. For both of these examples, the reading is offering me some details that I'm just going to label as details for now. What I did simply allows me to get organized in my mind and get focused on the questions that I'm going to read right now. But before I go to the questions, I would like to use this other strategy, which is called making predictions, and which refers to just that. What do you think the questions are going to be about? Well, since we have read about keystone species and some examples, I'm predicting these questions are going to have to do with either the grizzly bears or the otters, or maybe they're going to ask me what happens when a keystone species is removed from the environment. All these ideas that I have in my mind are going to help me to answer the questions. Let's go to the questions. And by the way, do not be scared of first looking at the question and then go back to the reading and try to look for specific details and information when you need to. And that will be my next tip for you. And now let's look at the questions together. One action that humans can take that might ensure that these sea otters will continue their function as a keystone species in their environment is to read the options, pause this video, and then come back to it. That's right. The right option is 2. Remember that the reading specified that sea otters were removed from the Pacific Cubs due to the activity of fur hunters. And that's correct. We need to pass laws to regulate the hunting of sea otters. Let's go see the next question. Some people feel that the grizzly bear should be eliminated from parts of its natural range. Describe the impact of this proposed action on the forest ecosystems in these areas if the bears are eliminated. Support your answer with information from the passage. Well, we certainly read that grizzly bears are a keystone species. We also read that bears are very important because when they capture salmon and carry them onto dry land, they also carry with them the nutrients from the salmon, such as nitrogen, sulfur, carbon, and phosphorus, and that allows other plants and animals that live in the forest to survive. All right, let's look at the next question together. Which organism is most likely not functioning as a keystone species in the ecosystem? Read the answers, pause this video, and then come back to it. That is correct. The zebra mussel is not a keystone species. However, the beaver, the elephants, and the black-tailed prairie dogs is in their ecosystems. The zebra mussels, however, are invasive species in the Great Lakes ecosystem. The last question of the day says, which sequence best represents the feeding relationships in a kelp ecosystem that has not been disturbed by humans? Read the options carefully, pause this video, and come back to it. And that is correct. The answer is number 2, kelp, sea urchins, and sea otters. The energy from kelp goes to the sea urchins, and the energy from the sea urchins goes to the sea otters. You can find all this information in the reading. So today we learned a little bit more about keystone species, sea otters, grizzly bears, and how to use some reading strategies that can help you succeed in your living environment test. Good luck and see you in the next video. Bye-bye.